My table has so many crumbs on it. Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. For this video, I am doing something that I've actually had a lot of people ask me to do, and that is explain how I make my meal plan. Now, when Dan and I first got married and we moved to Charlotte, we wanted to try to save money as best as we can, which meant we were not going to be eating out very much, which meant we were going to be cooking at home a lot more. And me, being the crazy person that I am and loving lists, thought, I want to make a meal plan. I didn't think like a normal person and think, I'm going to make a meal plan for the week. No. I thought, I'm going to make a meal plan for the month. So I set out to plan our entire month's meals for dinner. I'm not talking about breakfast or lunch, I'm strictly talking dinner. I'm here to share what I've come up with. Now, it's taken us about 2 years to really perfect the monthly meal plan, and you're not going to get it right away because every single family is different. No two people are the same. Everybody has different dietary needs, restrictions, preferences. Your schedules are different than ours will be. So this is purely what we do, and to give you some guidelines as to how to monthly meal prep, or just to get a better idea of how you want a weekly meal prep if that's what you want to do instead. But I'm going to walk you through, I keep looking up because my monthly meal plan calendar is right there on the wall, but I'm going to bring that down, erase the whole thing, and walk you through how I go through planning an entire month of meals. Alright, so this is the calendar that I use for all of my monthly meal planning, and it's just your basic little chalkboard calendar. The first thing I do is write down the month and just fill in the dates. Real basic stuff. The very next thing that I do is figure out when I can't or am not going to cook. Essentially, when will you be eating leftovers? For Dan and myself, we really like leftovers. Both of us are totally fine with eating leftovers. Our biggest thing is we don't want to eat leftovers too many days in a row. So for us, because we're trying to save as much money as possible, typically we'll have leftovers almost every other day. And a really good schedule that we've figured out that works for us is having leftovers every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Now this might change for every family because Dan and I, the way our work schedules are, I am home every evening. So technically, unless we have something that we're doing, if we're going out for a special occasion or meeting friends, I will be home to cook a meal. So we've decided to have leftovers on these days because it's what works for us to not waste food. But some of you guys might have jobs that require you to work late on specific days, meaning those days would be when you have leftovers. Sometimes your schedules change constantly and you don't know what days you're working late, what days you'll be off early, what days you'll be off completely until the week of. So, like I said, this is purely just something to kind of get your brain juices flowing for meal planning. And I'm just letting you know what works best for us so you can get a better idea of what you can try to implement for yourselves. Now, I recommend figuring out what days you can't or are not going to cook first, because then once you have that figured out, you can clearly see there are a lot of days now that I don't have to cook, meaning there's that many less meals to plan. I recommend trying out a plan and seeing how it goes, and you can always tweak it later, because this was by no means what we started with doing. I don't even remember what we started with, but it definitely evolved into this plan. It did not start that way by any stretch. It is all experimenting and seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, and then implementing those changes. The next thing that I do then is figure out, what do we want to eat? You can't just fill this entire board with recipes you think would be cool to eat, because you need to take into consideration who all is eating the food, what's going on around that time, if you'll have time to cook an elaborate meal, or if you'll need to cook something small and easy and quick. You'll also need to know what your budget allows for, how much money you can be spending for all of this food. And you'll also want to keep in mind the ingredients that you're buying so you know what meals to make to use up those ingredients so you aren't wasting food. I'll put up on the screen over to the side the app that I use to keep all of my recipes organized, because that is without a doubt one of the biggest keys to being able to do a monthly meal plan as successfully as I do. And that is having all of your recipes in one place. And I use this app called Organize Eat, and I have for 2 years now. And it's an amazing app that lets you insert all of your recipes that you have, whether it be from specific websites, whether it be just by pictures, whether it be you actually typing them in, and it keeps them all organized. You can make any type of folder that you want, so you can keep them organized by chicken, by beef, by fish, by pasta, by breakfast foods, by vegetarian dishes. Any way you want to organize your meals, you can. And I highly recommend getting something like this, whether it be an actual app or whether you print off all of your recipes and put them in a single large binder. Whatever works best for you, I highly recommend that before you sit down to try to figure out a meal plan, you go around and gather all of the recipes that you have into one spot and get them organized by category, because that is going to make a world of difference. So with all of that, what you want to do is try to figure out how often you want to cook specific foods. Do you want to have fish once a week? Do you want to have pasta once a month? Get to know what you want to eat and what you think would be best for your diet, and then start inserting recipes here and there. So for Dan and me, I try to incorporate fish once a week in our meal plan. And because when we cook fish, we don't cook it in large quantities, so there's typically little to no leftovers, and leftover fish really isn't the greatest anyway. So I'll typically cook fish on Fridays, and that just works out best for us because then we're cooking another meal on Saturday, and we don't have to worry about cooking a meal that doesn't have leftovers because we're cooking another meal the very next day. So what I typically do is go ahead and fill in all of my Friday meals first. Now, as I'm writing in meals, I also want to keep in mind what we're having as sides, because when I look at this meal plan, I want to know how I'm shopping and what I'm shopping for. So I'll know we're having shrimp scampi, but I also know we're going to be having bruschetta with it, and we'll probably make some steamed broccoli as well. All right, so then I'll start looking through the recipes that I have and think, what haven't we cooked in a while? What have we been really wanting to try for a while? What recipes do we really love that we want to make again? And from there, I'll just start strategically filling in some different spots. So January is really cold, so I'll think, I want to make a soup or two. So I'll look through the soup recipes that I have and put, let's say, loaded potato soup here. And then because I don't want to have soup too close together, I'll put another soup that I want to make maybe on the 14th. That way there's a space between the soups and we're not getting burnt out of soup. Next, I'll look at the meats that we have in our freezer. And I'll say, okay, we have a pound of beef. I should use that. How do I want to use that? I know, we'll make some spaghetti and meatballs. So because we're already having a pasta right here, I'll say, let's put some spaghetti and meatballs on the 19th. And then I'll look at what other meats we have in the freezer and say, oh, we have a pork shoulder that I got on sale. We should make some pulled pork sandwiches. And I'll pick Monday to slow cook that because it's a 12-hour cook and I'm off on Mondays, so I know I can be home to keep an eye on it. And then I know from experience when we slow cook an entire pork shoulder, we have a lot of pork to work with. So this very next Wednesday, maybe we'll make pulled pork nachos. And then I'll look and I'll say, okay, the rest of these, I have 8 more recipes to figure out. Like I said earlier, I'm off on Mondays, so why don't I use Mondays as a time to experiment with new recipes that I've never made before? So I'm gonna go online and I'm gonna find recipes that I wanna try that I've never tried before, and I'm gonna cook 2 new recipes this month, and I'm gonna cook them on these Mondays. So let's say you've never made stromboli before and you really wanna try making stromboli. You're gonna look online, look in your cookbooks that you have, and find a stromboli recipe that you wanna try, and you're gonna cook it this Monday. And then in parentheses, you're gonna write where you found that recipe, so when it comes time to grocery shop, you know where you're looking for those ingredients. Same thing on this Monday. Let's say you want to try a broccoli cheddar soup because you're really into soups and you want to make a lot of them. So you're gonna find a good broccoli cheddar soup recipe and you're gonna write it in there with where you got the recipe from. Now these other 6 recipes, typically what I do at this stage is I find recipes that I have that I've tried that I liked that have chicken in them, because chicken is the protein that we go for the most often, and it's what we usually have on hand the most often. So then I'll start just looking through our chicken recipes and saying, these are all recipes I know are good, and again, I try to rotate them so we don't have the same recipe again and again. And then I'll essentially just start filling them in. All right, and then once you have your entire meal plan and the month of all of the meals you're planning on cooking filled in, then you review all of it and you make sure you don't need to switch anything around. And that would include if you remember an event suddenly you're going to one night that you actually can't cook that night. Like on the 18th, I have something going on and I totally forgot about it. So what I'm gonna do is switch around these days. So I'm having leftovers this Friday and a fish meal on this Thursday. Now, that tilapia meal I was planning doesn't offer enough leftovers for a leftovers day to follow it. So instead, we're gonna make jambalaya, because jambalaya offers plenty of leftovers and it's a delicious leftover. And then also look around just to make sure you're not cooking too many things in sequence that will burn you out on it. That's like, for example, you aren't cooking pasta 3 days in a row, or you aren't having 3 different types of tacos in the same week. Unless you really like that, then by all means go for it. And once you're happy with it, you can stick it up on your wall, you can lean it against your counter, put this wherever you want to put it so you can see it, and so that everybody in your house can see it. And this works wonders for completely eliminating that question of, what are we gonna eat tonight? What do you want to eat tonight? What should we have for dinner tonight? I'm gonna go to the grocery store. What should I pick up? All of those questions are answered because you know exactly what you're cooking. All right, and that is how I meal plan for an entire month. Now, like I said, this specific meal plan probably will not work for you. I actually don't expect it to work for you. This is just a guideline to help get you thinking about how you can better your meal plans that you do, whether it be on a weekly basis, whether you try to tackle an entire month. But like I said, this makes it 10 times easier when you're getting ready to go grocery shopping, because one, you can do your bulk grocery shopping at the very beginning of the month because you know exactly what you're cooking, so you know exactly what recipes you need, and you know you can go ahead and buy all of the non-perishable foods for that right away. At the beginning of each week, which is when I do my grocery shopping, you can just grocery shop once in that week and get everything that you need for that entire week. And you don't have to go grocery shopping every single day for that night's dinner because you didn't know what you were having until that night. I also love this because this is a great way to help rotate your meals, so you aren't cooking the exact same meal again and again and again and not realizing it and then getting burnt out on that one meal. This offers a great solution so that you are incorporating more foods into your diet, that you are trying new things, and that you aren't getting burnt out on the recipes that you love so much, but that they can become more of a treat so you enjoy them all the more when you do have them. This is also a great way to make sure that you aren't wasting food. If you start making a meal plan and realize that you have food in the fridge that's going bad because you didn't use it up, make a mental note of that so the next time you buy that ingredient, or the next time you plan on making a meal with that ingredient in it, plan your next meal that you cook to also incorporate that ingredient so you're using it up and not wasting it. Also, make sure you're writing down different things with your meals. That has become a huge help for Dan and me when we are making meals and when we are trying new things, is that if we cook something and it's delicious when we eat it right away, and then we go to it the next day for a leftover and realize it's actually kind of a disgusting leftover, we make a note of that in our recipe with that specific recipe. We'll write down, "It's great that night, not so great as a leftover. That way the next time we make it, we know not to make as much and to make it on a day that we're gonna be cooking something else pretty soon. And then same thing if you try a recipe and it's great, but you're like, I think it could use a little more salt and it could also benefit from having this added to it as well, or this taken out of it. Make a note. That way, when you go back to that recipe, you'll enjoy it all the more because you're incorporating things that you've learned from the last time you made it. And this is also a great way to prep your meals ahead of time. If you're really big into prepping your meals ahead of time and maybe even just freezing them, this is a great way to do that because it'll organize your thoughts even more and you'll know, okay, this week I'm prepping these meals, next week I'm prepping these meals, and this meat's on sale, so I'm gonna buy it now so that I can get a sale price on it for when I need it next week, and then freeze it. And I think that's awesome. I've not experimented with like freezing full meals and then bringing them out and cooking them, but I think people who do that are awesome and I would love to learn from you. Hopefully this has helped you with getting your ideas flowing for meal planning and for planning for an entire month like I do because I'm crazy. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts, love to hear your suggestions, love to answer questions as best as I can. Make sure you like this video if it's helped, share it if you think somebody you know would benefit from this, or if you just want to not forget it and watch it again, just share it to yourself. I don't mind. Subscribe to this channel because I make vlogs where I actually talk about cooking a lot of these meals and sometimes walk you through them so you'll get some behind the scenes of the actual meal prep that I do as well. Also, if you attempt this, please let me know so I can see what your guys' meal plans look like. I don't know anybody else who does full month meal plans, and I would love to see what some other people do and how they arrange their calendar, because I think that would be awesome to learn from other people's experiences with doing this as well. Have a great week, and I will see you guys later. Bye! Actually, and if I'm going about doing stuff, la